Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's be real for a second. Learning future tenses in a new language can feel, well, totally daunting, right? But today we are looking at a remarkably straightforward way to talk about the future in Spanish. If you usually feel intimidated by grammar rules, the source material we're exploring today is going to be a breath of fresh air. It shows us how we can completely bypass those complex memorization charts and use a structured, highly predictable pattern called futuro con ir a. Language learning is full of tricky exceptions, but this specific piece of grammar, it's an incredibly refreshing shortcut. We're going to break this down into simple, manageable pieces that you can literally start using right away.
So, have you ever wondered how you can confidently express your future plans in Spanish without getting bogged down by a massive list of complicated verb endings? Traditional language learning often hits a massive brick wall right here. You spend all this time getting comfortable with the present tense, and then boom, the future tense makes you feel like you're starting entirely from scratch. It's overwhelming. But it turns out you probably already know the core ingredient needed to fix this. No starting from scratch, and definitely no staring at brand new verb charts for hours on end.
All right, let's get into the secret hack. The manual points out that the entire solution revolves around a single, super versatile verb that you probably learned on day one of your Spanish journey. I'm talking about the verb ir, which simply means to go. Instead of learning new endings for every single verb in the dictionary just to talk about tomorrow, we can use this one verb as our reliable anchor. Think of it as a massive shortcut. By mastering this one tiny word, you are suddenly equipped to talk about literally any action that hasn't happened yet.
Now, right on page 83 of our source material, we get this delightfully simple formula. Here is your roadmap. You start with the subject, the person doing the action. Then you add the conjugated form of that verb, ir. Next is your connector, just the letter A. After that comes an infinitive verb, and remember, an infinitive is just the basic, unconjugated action word exactly as you'd find it in a dictionary, like comer or hablar. Finally, the complement adds the extra details to finish out your thought. So, subject, ir, a, infinitive, complement. That's it. It's consistent, it's logical, and honestly, it never changes.
You want to know what makes this formula so incredibly approachable? The only piece that ever actually changes is that very first verb, ir. For yo, meaning I, it becomes voy. For the informal tu, or you, it's vas. For él, ella, or usted, we use va. When we're talking about nosotros, meaning we, it becomes vamos. And finally, ustedes, ellos, or ellas use van. That is the whole list. Those 5 little words are the only things you need to commit to memory. Once you've got voy, vas, va, vamos, and van locked in, the rest of your sentence is just going to fall perfectly into place.
I actually like to think of this structure like linguistic Lego blocks, just clicking together. Watch this. First, we drop in our subject block, yo, meaning I. Then, we grab our conjugated ir verb and that connector, voy a, meaning am going to. Finally, we snap on the infinitive action block, trabajar, which means to work. Yo voy a trabajar. See? There's zero need to worry about how to conjugate the word for work in the future tense. You just leave it exactly as it is. You're just grabbing the right blocks from your mental toolbox and lining them up.
And when we put all those blocks together into a full sentence, it sounds so natural. Yo voy a trabajar en Matanzas la semana próxima. Translated, that's I am going to work in Matanzas next week. Notice how the core action stays in its raw form, trabajar. The voy a is doing all the heavy lifting for the timeline. That complement at the end, en Matanzas la semana próxima, just tells us where and when, while that fundamental ir a structure guarantees the listener knows this is definitely happening in the future.
Let's try swapping out the subject so you can see just how flexible this really is. Let's say we want to talk about a group, using nosotros, which means we. We just check our mental cheat sheet and pair it with vamos. Then, obviously, we add our crucial connector, a. Finally, we drop in a completely different infinitive. Let's use terminar, which means to finish. The logic doesn't break. We are just selecting different building blocks to construct a brand new thought, relying completely on the exact same foundational formula as before.
So following that formula straight across gives us Nosotros vamos a terminar el trabajo mañana al mediodía. In English, we are going to finish the work tomorrow at noon. The structure perfectly mirrors how we say it in English, going to finish. And that is exactly why this specific Spanish structure is so quick and intuitive for English speakers to pick up. There are no complicated mental gymnastics going on here. You're literally just mapping your English thought directly over to the Spanish equivalent, word for word.
Once you recognize this repetitive pattern, speaking about the future just becomes this fun game of plug-and-play vocabulary. For instance, él va a desayunar. He is going to have breakfast. Ellas van a conversar. They are going to chat. Ellos van a venir. They are going to come. By just swapping out that one infinitive verb at the end, their entire meaning changes, but the grammar? Perfectly intact. It opens up an immense amount of conversational freedom because it lets you use every single infinitive verb you've ever learned, completely stress-free.
Let's put this into a real-world scenario from the text. Say we are discussing Laura's upcoming birthday party. We can easily and excitedly apply this logic. Laura va a tener una fiesta preciosa por su cumpleaños. Let's break it down. Laura is the subject, va is the conjugated form of ir for she, a is our connector, and tener is the infinitive verb to have. Laura is going to have a beautiful party for her birthday. It flows beautifully, giving us this highly reliable way to talk about upcoming events without ever hesitating over weird verb endings.
Okay, look at this side-by-side contrast. It makes the timeline shift so incredibly obvious. The present tense sentence, Laura y Juan preparan los detalles, which means they prepare the details, simply becomes Laura y Juan van a preparar los detalles in the future. We just take that conjugated present tense verb, revert it back to the raw infinitive form, preparar, and slap van a right in front of it. It literally takes a split second to pivot a present thought directly into a solid future plan.
Let's do a quick rapid-fire review of a couple more examples straight from page 83 to really cement this in your mind. Remember the golden rule: subject plus ir plus a plus infinitive. Ella va a mudarse. She is going to move. Ustedes van a esperarme. You all are going away from me. The consistency here means no weird rule changes, just reliable, structured communication that works every single time. It's proof that expanding your language skills doesn't always have to mean endless, painful memorization.
So now that the future timeline is completely wide open to you using just a few simple building blocks, it leaves us with one final, very important question. How are you going to use this exact formula to describe your own exciting plans? The beauty of this structure is that it immediately empowers you to talk about your life, your schedules, and your goals. Pick a subject, conjugate ir, add a, and drop in an infinitive. ¿Qué vas a hacer mañana? Seriously, what are you going to do tomorrow? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I can't wait to see what you build with this.